Hi everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Bandage, the podcast where we go beyond the textbook and into the real stories, real people, and real impact behind first aid. Because today, we're not just talking about training, we're talking about purpose, we're talking about impact, and we're talking about what happens when the skills we teach truly come full circle.
We are joined by Caroline, ABC First Aid's Head of Audit and Compliance. Caroline plays a vital role behind the scenes, ensuring that our training, assessment and operational practices meet the standards expected within the vocational, education and training sector. With a strong understanding of compliance requirements and quality assurance, she helps support both our trainers and partners to deliver high quality training that meets industry expectations. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here. It's great, a good opportunity to talk about compliance. But before we go there, we want to know a bit more about you. So look, compliance can be a scary word in our industry. It comes up a lot, but talk us through what your role in our organisation is and how it supports our partners.
Yeah, I think compliance can feel really scary because there is a lot of it. So we're talking over 55 pages of ASQA requirement that RTO have to comply with.
It's a lot of reading.
There is a lot of it, so, which is why I think it can be scary at times. But my role is pretty much to put those requirements into practice through monitoring activities. So, for example, auditing our partners' website, auditing our systems, our processes, assessment tools, and making sure that we have all the systems in place to comply with the standards. And I think why it's important to our partner, it's because compliance is relevant to student outcome and to make sure that our students get the best training they can get and that they walk out of their course with the right skills that they need to work in the industry.
Absolutely. And in this case, in the first aid industry, and we talk about it so much, preventing injury and saving lives, right? Because the flow-on effect of, poor quality training, right, is
life or death.
You absolutely said it. That's exactly right.
Huge risk. Huge risk.
Yeah, for sure.
Compliance and education in training can feel overwhelming for trainers, especially when they already feel like they know everything. So why do you think it's so overwhelming for our partners?
I think it can be hard to understand why we ask so much evidence of them and we ask them to prove things that they know they can do, and most of the time they've done for a very long time. So I think it's just giving that understanding that from a regulator perspective, if we don't have evidence of something, it hasn't happened.
Exactly.
We know our partner have definitely the experience that they need to provide great training. We actually spend a lot of time getting to know them, getting to know their background, their experience, but it's just about gathering all those evidence so that we can prove this experience to the regulator.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just probably on that, I think that's probably one of the struggles in probably many RTOs is we're working with professionals that have an unbelievable amount of experience, right? And some for 40, 50 years. But it's just trying to compile that evidence and basically take their lives and obviously their currency and everything they've been working on and putting that together in case of, or at least what they think in case of an audit. But ultimately, it's also for us to verify that they're still training and teaching the most up-to-date knowledge as well, right? That can be hard. And I think for you, you're in a position where you're trying to make sure that our organization is doing the right thing compliance-wise, but also it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Because you're trying to make sure that we're also taking into consideration that we have partners and trainers that maybe do get a bit offside when they're asked to verify and they might say, what do you mean verify? I've been doing this for 40 years. Who are you?
I think it's just about explaining the background of why we need that information and why we need that massive amount of evidence and just giving them the background and explaining the why and the reason behind. At the end of
why.
Everything has a why.
yeah, and it's, you know, explaining to them that at the end of the day, it's to make sure that our RTO can keep running, and that we can keep providing training to students. So, yeah, I think if they understand where we're coming from, it just makes it a little bit easier.
Sometimes it's not just one party that their compliance is not compliant. It affects everybody, right? Like it affects the RTO and then the rest of the partners that are with us as well.
Yeah, like obviously, although every third party, every partner deliver their own training and assessment, at the end of the day, they all work under the same RTO framework. And it is a bit hard to see the connection, but you know, if we have one third party or partner that is not compliant for whatever reason, well, it may affect the integrity of the entire RTO, which means of other partners as well. So
it's a flow-on effect.
It's a flow-on effect, and everything is connected. And if we do get an audit from the regulator, they're not going to audit one specific third party. They're going to audit ABC First Aid as one whole RTO. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think as well, what I found over the years dealing and working closely with our third parties or our partners is that often it's how the message is delivered. Because our partners, I think, you know, really feel part of something, and that is a deliberate act on our side, is we want them to feel part of something. And I think it's really about delivering that message. If they're receiving the message in the way that I believe that they should, and I encourage that they should, then that's that consultation and buying them into the reason why. And again, going back to the why, as opposed to, here's an email, you're non-compliant, do this or else. It really is about doing the right thing and having you steer that ship, Caroline, but also making sure that how we deliver that message via the partner support team or yourself is in a way where they're still feeling like they're absolutely part of something, and that they know their stuff, but ultimately there are rules and we do need to follow them, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a great approach that we have to have a partner team that is in constant communication with them, so they have that first point of contact, and instead of having me, the bad cop, coming once every 6 months with bad news, it's great for me to conduct audits, get a breakdown of any resolutions that is needed, and then giving that information to our partner team to communicate the information. And obviously I'm always here in the background to help clarify points. But I think that approach is good to make sure there is that constant communication and the same person that they communicate with rather than...
The person that's a good cop. Is that D then, right?
Yeah,
D.
I'm the good cop. I'm the bad cop, you're the good cop.
I'll take it.
And surely we've got to shout out to Jodie, right? She's our other very good cop as well.
Yes.
We have to have good and bad to make it work. No. What's your favorite part of the role? Like in our organization, or even talk to your past, like why compliance? What is it that you love about it?
I like making sure that rules are followed.
That's a surprise. We all know your personality now. I think it's great.
Everyone that knows me is always surprised to hear that I work in compliance, because it's definitely not in line with my personality. I actually come from industry myself. I used to work as a film and TV makeup artist, doing prosthetics and all this kind of thing, which is how I got into the vocational education. I started as a trainer and assessor. So I think, the way I got in this industry is a little bit different than other compliance professionals. But for compliance and what I like the most, I think I like all the project that comes with the challenge. So re-registration for me is a big one. It is obviously always stressful to
You like
through.
it?
Yeah, I do.
This is the point where people will think you're crazy.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just because it's the ultimate compliance test, right? You're putting, all the work that you've been put on, all your processes, your training and assessment, trainer's credential, everything we do, put them all together and seeing if it's upstand the test to the regulator. So I think it's just the ultimate test, so that's why I really like it. And I also like doing audit of partners' website
Oh,
and
yes.
just checking alignment with what we do and making sure that the information we provide out there is in line with our training and assessment strategies, our practices, just making sure that we have the same information provided across all partners.
Being consistent.
Just being consistent, that's
Yeah.
it. And especially we have that many partners
Yeah.
that, we have to audit everybody's website at one point just to make sure we have that consistency and that quality assurance approach.
I think so. And
Yeah.
do you know what's quite interesting as well? I'm of the view of like when you give upfront, accurate, clear, consistent information, that the student can enroll in the course without any hurdles, right?
Yeah.
But if your information is scattered across the website, isn't really that clear, there's something about duration maybe up the top, but maybe the duration's different at the bottom. What happens is the student's either going to decide, I'm confused,
That's
because
not
our
for me.
attention spans nowadays are insane, right? We want information quickly.
Yeah.
It's different to compliance, but I think with the compliance is definitely a link. But I guess they're going to decide whether to go somewhere else or whether to pick up the phone and call that person or the business, which means calls increase. There's operational load.
Yeah.
People are then too busy. The business doesn't operate as efficiently or effectively because the information was not correct in the first place.
That's it.
So I think your work, Caroline, really directly not necessarily just, it impacts compliance, but a major impact on efficiency as well.
Yeah. I think having the right information on everybody's website is making everybody's life easier, as you mentioned, less questions from prospective student, less confusion, and it's just making everybody's life easier to have the right information first up.
Exactly, and that's what our good cops do. Is provide that information as an additional layer of, but also, have you seen a reduction in the phone calls and emails come in? So they're the sort of things that, when you analyze businesses and you try to operate efficiently and effectively so that you can do what you do best and provide training is, looking at those things. And 9 times out of 10, it's forgotten about. And it has a direct link to compliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand as well, our partners are super busy delivering that quality training and assessment, right? So sometimes it's hard to allocate the time as well to fixing a website every 3 months. You know what I mean? So I think it's helpful for them to have us taking that compliance work and doing all those checks for them. So at the end of the day,
It's a big task.
Yeah, they don't have to actually review their own website. They just have to implement changes. So it reduced that workload as well for them.
Yeah, for sure.
So ABC First Aid are a third-party partnership. What do you think the benefits would be for having a third-party partnership over being an RTO?
Ooh.
I think they are having the best
Juicy.
of both worlds. Just so they don't have to think about the compliance layer and they can focus on whatever they do the best, which is delivering great training and assessment. Building an RTO and maintaining an RTO is a huge task. It comes with a lot of stress, a lot of compliance, a lot of responsibility. We're not only talking about delivering training and assessment, we're talking about developing processes, policies, procedure, but also maintaining those. Checking trainers' credential constantly, especially with our field where, we have qualification have a licensing requirement and some units have an expiry date. So there is that whole layer of checking that, we have the current qualification. Developing training resources, validating those training resources once at least every 5 years. It just comes with a massive amount of work. So I think having us taking on that workload is definitely beneficial for them so they can just focus on delivering great training and assessment and focus on students.
Less stress, better outcome for them.
Yep. And leaving us the boring part of checking and,
leaving you the boring part.
Everything and reading hundreds of pages of document and requirement and regulations,
Yeah, that's it. Because often and also so many things connect as well, right?
Yeah.
Because if you change one thing in relation to how you monitor or your delivery or your, operational practices, there's so many other, let's say, standards connected to that. And you really do need to have years of experience as well in those spaces, and also the time and the ability to research and understand the standards as well. So having that dedicated compliance resource and having that taken care of. I think another thing, probably even from a product standpoint, Caroline, that you would know too, like there's a lot of work that goes into developing good training materials. And, you know, I sit here obviously very proud of my team, Lisa and her department. They do an exceptional job and our feedback is exceptional as well. And compliance plays a part in that because, you know, our product development team look after the engagement aspect of it, but then your role is to make sure that it actually is compliant, it meets industry standards and obviously the packaging requirements as well. So there's a bit to that, right?
Yeah, and it's not just about writing resources, you know, there is all that obviously research that comes into it first before they even get to write resources. Then, you know, there is obviously more than one version of those learning resources until getting to that final version. It goes through validation from Lisa's team. It goes from validation from subject matter experts. Following those feedback from those experts, we have to go back
process
and implementing those changes to have a final version. Then 3 months after those new resources are rolled out, we're doing another check. We're also conducting post-validation, which is pretty much checking all the assessment decision that has been made by our assessors and making sure that they are consistent across every assessor, across every student.
So much that goes into it.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just developing those resources. It just comes with so many extra steps that people don't realize.
And you know, we might be thinking, oh, AI can develop. Yeah. But AI is not an industry expert, right? No. So it makes all the difference on the student outcomes too, you know. Do you think trainers know that? Do you think trainers...
No, I don't think so.
Know the depth of information, or the depth of involvement that there is to get a product off the ground and roll it out and make sure that it meets industry and it's engaging long-term or ongoing?
I don't think that it's visible from a lot of people. No. And you know what? Throughout my years working in compliance, every time I organize validation sessions with trainers, and that might be their first involvement in a validation session, most of the time, although they are qualified, they have a training and assessment qualification, they cannot believe how much is involved, how much check. Every time, you know, everyone has the same reaction. They just can't believe how much work is involved.
Yeah, from like working in frontline, being a trainer, and obviously working in the office as well, I honestly don't think everyone knows how much goes into developing that product from start to finish. Like, it's such a huge process, and I think like we've got really a great product team that can roll these quality products out. Yeah,
for sure. Caroline, so as part of your role as well, and certainly within our organisation, we have a mentality that's one in, all in. So we have, and this is probably a two-part question, so I'll start with question one, is we apply a monitoring framework to monitor all of our third parties across the country and essentially in every state. And we apply the same, I guess, approach to that across the board. Can you talk us through if there, for any of our existing partners that, you know, should and of course would know this, but let's say any partners that are thinking of becoming a third party with an RTO, what would that monitoring framework look like?
So first, as you mentioned, obviously we have the same consistent approach throughout everybody, and it's just to make sure that we have consistent outcome and consistent quality. You know, if we did apply different requirements across different partners, we wouldn't have that consistency that we would like to get. And that monitoring framework has quite a few parts to it. So first, at time of onboarding for new partner, we spend a lot of time verifying credential, resource, facility, just making sure that partners have everything they need to deliver the right training with the right equipment. Then once they are working with us and they are onboarded, there is just that ongoing monitoring that comes with, which involve, as I mentioned, auditing of their website, auditing of their whole practices, and pretty much just making sure that throughout the entire learner journey, all the way from enrollment to completion, that they just receive the same amount of support and the same quality across all the trainers, all the partners, and underpinning all this framework is our third-party agreement, which we renew every year. I think it's a great approach that we have, that, you know, every year partners have to renew their agreement, which means they have to read through their agreement, read through all the really clear outline of all the compliance requirement that they have to comply with.
Refreshes their mind from what they've signed from last year, you know, why they're delivering with us.
Yeah, and that's helping us having people that just have current practices and that are relevant in the industry and delivering the right training.
Yeah, so it's a process. There's a few moving parts. And so second part to the question, on the one in, all in, this is an interesting one, I think, of course, because of having, I guess, years of seeing this. Do you think that trainers, with trainers being partners, so I'll say partners, do you think that they would realize that if they're non-compliant because, let's say, their facility doesn't meet the requirements or they, you know, their equipment isn't up to standard, or they're shortening their durations, or they're not giving students information up front, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on, right? Do you think that they realize that if they're doing the wrong thing, that they're potentially jeopardizing every single other partner, as well of course the RTO, because they essentially are. If one partner is non-compliant, that reflects the RTO, which then jeopardizes the rest of these partners' businesses that they have potentially worked on for years and years. It's pretty huge, right?
I think our partners have definitely a great understanding of their individual compliance requirement, but I think it's hard to see the connection between other partners that are all over the country and how their non-compliance may affect everybody. But I understand that it's a correlation that might be hard to see, but I think we just need to remember that, again, we all work under the same RTO framework. And if we do get an audit from the regulator, they're going to audit the RTO as a whole, not pinpoint specific partners. So I think this is the message really that we need to send across, making sure that, you know, by being compliant, you're not just helping your own business, you're helping every other partners and ABC as a whole.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's, that realization that whenever we make a decision, perhaps let's say we make a decision to terminate a partner hypothetically, we're not just thinking about that individual or our RTO, we're thinking about everybody else as well, because ultimately our role is to do everything we can to protect our RTO and of course our partners and their businesses and livelihood
as well.
And in everything
students
we do,
too,
in every decision we take as well, we always have a risk approach. So, you know, if we identify compliance gaps, it's all about how big are those compliance gaps? Can we mentor the partner and helping them get back on track and providing additional training, additional support to fix those gaps? Or do we identify that the concerns that we have identified are just so big that, you know, for us, it's probably a less risky approach to terminate a partner. So, you know, we don't always, we don't make black or white decision, you know, we always have a good thinking process behind it, and it's always a risk approach and making sure that, we keep every other partner at the heart of every decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Dee, you've got a burning one.
I've got a burning one. It's a very common one at the moment. It's course duration. So how important is it that we meet minimum requirements for our course durations?
Course duration is my favorite topic.
And why?
And why?
Yeah. That's a favorite topic of mine, because I think we don't realize that course duration goes back to quality and goes back to qualification integrity and providing the right skills to students and making sure they leave their course with the right skill to apply in real world. You know, if you shorten a course significantly without having a proper rationale behind, it may impact the skill development of the student. It's actually an ASQA standard as well, that we have to provide sufficient time for training to give students enough time to absorb the skill, to practice the skill, and to be confident enough to be assessed for that skills. So, if we shorten course duration too much, we're not giving students the chance to have that skill development that leads to competency. So
the practice, the skill set, the hands-on, the building that confidence to walk out the room.
And that's it. That's the confidence. We don't want students to be able to perform a skill once, being assessed once, and they can do that skill once, and as soon as they leave the building, they wouldn't be able to apply in the real world. We want to make sure that we give them enough time to actually practice that skill. So by the time they come to assessment, they're definitely confident and comfortable that they will be able to apply that skill over and over a period of time. And it also go back on top of the ASQA standard, it goes back to the Australian quality framework. So for any qualification that we deliver that are nationally accredited, we have to comply with the AQF framework, which pretty much outline the level of skills and knowledge that every level of qualification should demonstrate. So, if we shorten course duration too much, it will impact, obviously, the skills. It will impact compliance with the AQF, compliance with ASQA. And at the end of the day, I just don't believe we will provide a training.
Quality training.
And
student outcomes, right?
Student outcome. Yeah.
And then casualty outcomes, right?
Yeah, and especially in first aid.
Yeah.
Like it's not just theory, it could be like a life or death situation. So we really want to make sure that as soon as those students leave the course, they really feel confident that they could jump in at any time.
Save someone's life.
Yeah, to apply those skills and save someone's life. So I think the stakes are really high. And it's just, there is so much more than just, let's just reduce that course by 2 hours.
Yeah.
There is a lot behind that should be considered.
You've got to think about it. And I think it's interesting. We have been having these conversations for a number of years now, Caroline, around express is one word, a way of describing this delivery method, but it's typically an assessment only approach. And for us, you guys know this, but speaking to our listeners, obviously, is that we offer that to students who have prior experience, and looking at particular cohorts where we can contextualize that particular program for them as well. So typically, as we've spoken about a fair bit recently, in terms of public courses as an example, we need to be really careful who will be attending those training sessions, because if you have 15 people in the classroom, or again, let's just go 5 because it's easier, 5 people in the classroom that have done this training before, but then you have 5 that have never touched a mannequin in their life, as an example, that is not a good environment for both. Like, obviously the students are not getting the skills that they need. They shouldn't be in a shortened course duration in the first place, right? That's where it gets really messy. So what are your thoughts on express training, and of course for the right reasons or the right cohorts?
I think express courses definitely have a place, for sure. If you have someone who has done the course and is just doing the course again as a refresher, they're definitely going to have those skills already that they're ready to demonstrate, they're ready to be assessed on. It's just so different than having a cohort that have never practiced those skills, because again, they need that whole skill progression time to allow them to actually get those skills. So the confidence. Express definitely has a space, but we just need to make sure that we open this kind of delivery to the right people, the right cohort, and making sure that in our express courses we have students who have practiced those skills before, who are able to demonstrate those skills without much training. And I think definitely we shouldn't have both cohort in the same delivery, because they're just going to have different expectation and different needs.
Yeah,
totally. It just doesn't work, does it?
No, it does. It doesn't work. And and that's one of our standards that we need to abide by. It's our responsibility to make sure that we put students in suitable courses, that we don't put students in courses where we're going to set them up for failure. So
That's a great point.
It's up to us to have that suitability assessment and to make sure that we put students in the right delivery mode. So I think, that's just the important thing that we need to keep in mind. But Express is great for the right cohort, for sure.
So there's a place for it.
Yeah.
The durations as well, because there's been backlash over the years of, a first aid course in 90 minutes or something like that. Now that's a minimum duration, right? That's not maximum. You can't go over that. And I think that maybe sometimes that's what is misconstrued.
People get confused.
Yeah.
The minimum requirements. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably more of a point. Yeah, they do get confused for sure. But I'm thinking more so, yes, the students, but I'm now sort of going along the lines of, let's say, other training organizations that, we spoke about this in another podcast with another guest, but we do have a need to deliver full day face-to-face training, for example. But we also have the space and the places you mentioned for the express training and deliver it in, let's say, that 90 minutes, depending again on the cohort. But that is minimum. What happens, Caroline, if a student in the classroom we're finding that they are needing more support? They, at that point in time when they've done the assessment, they aren't competent. Is it as simple as we just give them more time on the day? Does it really need to be any more complicated than that?
I think it depends. So it's the assessor that need to make a choice depending on how much extra support is needed for that student. Are we just talking about, the student needs an extra 20 minutes to practice the skills further and a few more times before they're ready to be assessed? Or are we talking about a student who doesn't have the understanding of the basic concept that comes with the skills? If the trainer or the assessor find that the student has done that express course but really doesn't have the basic concept, and providing additional time wouldn't help, then I think the best thing to do is to get those students to re-enroll in a standard course. But if it's a matter of, the student needs an extra 20 minutes, needs another few demonstration, then of course we can accommodate and give them additional time and still, guide them towards competency in that express course. So it's just about having the right approach and judging each individual case. And because, each student is different, right? So it's just about having that understanding of the difference of student need and make a call based on that.
Yeah, and it isn't like you've got 90 minutes, you must be competent. Like there are options available, and I think that's sometimes what we're missing in terms of looking at how others do things. And obviously, it's good to see what competitors are doing, but I think sometimes durations can be misconstrued for reasons that are not necessarily beneficial to the students, right? So I think sometimes we forget what we're in this for, and it is that saving lives. So we were looking for the outcomes, and that they can actually apply the skills as soon as they step out if they need to. Yeah,
and by themselves without supervision. Being really comfortable that if they have someone in need in front of them, they would be able to jump in, no question asked, and not questioning their skills. I think, we just need to remember, and it's at the heart of every decision we make in the RTO world, is just student outcome and providing the right skills, the current skills, and being aligned with industry. I think that's the most important.
It is, yeah. Talk us through, so this comes up often, it's RPL versus credit transfer. You're laughing because you know, right? And in the context of, in the world of first aid training, what is, or safety training, what is the difference in credit transfer versus RPL?
So they both refer to prior learning, right? But the credit transfer is if we have a student who has previously done that unit of competency, they've been signed off on that unit of competency, the unit has the exact same code, the same unit name, then we will be able to do a credit transfer. However, if the student hasn't done any formal training, but has the skills through work experience, having worked in the industry for a very long time, then we look at what we call recognition of prior learning. So pretty much it's about gathering evidence that the student can do the task without going through a formal training and a formal assessment. So RPL is just about gathering evidence to show that the student can do that task. So we look at different type of evidence. It could be a combination of a resume, a supervisor report, a position description, pictures, videos.
Different tickets that they owe.
Different tickets, other qualification that they may have done before. I think, it's just we take that approach where we gather as much evidence, and then the assessor should look at those evidence and make a decision whether, based on this evidence, could that student perform the skills and comply with the performance evidence of the unit and demonstrate the knowledge of the unit or not. So, credit transfer goes back to formal training that has been done versus RPL is an assessment of skills rather than formal training.
That makes sense.
Great explanation.
It is, because it's often confusing for people.
Yeah.
I guess one thing that does come up as well is, let's even just focus on CPR for a moment. A CPR course, again, durations can vary, but let's just say it's a 2-hour course for CPR. The industry requirement, the industry recommendation is to refresh that annually, right? So can a person apply for RPL on an annual basis for their CPR?
Not in this case, because we have licensing requirements that apply. So if a unit has licensing requirement, this is what we need to apply. So if the unit has an expiry of 12 months, then the student will have to do that unit again, and we wouldn't be able to apply credit transfer. That's my take on it.
I think that's
a great answer. Like, it's just full stop. That's it, right?
Yeah, because because ultimately you have to follow the industry recommendation.
Yeah, and most of the time units with those licensing requirements are units where things evolve, like, other industry like, AI and things like that may have licensing requirement just because those industries are always changing. So you have to have those refresher. In this case, first aid, CPR, you're saving someone's life. So we want to make sure that the skills are always up to date, and this is why licensing requirements are in place. There is a reason behind, and an important one.
Yeah, it is pretty important. That's right.
Some people see compliance as a box ticking exercise. How do you see compliance supporting quality training?
Yeah, I think it's easy to think compliance and think paperwork, policies, procedure, boring. But I think we just need to remember that the heart of compliance and why compliance exists is just to support great student outcome. And again, to make sure we provide the right training that is aligned with industry needs, aligned with the skills that the industry needs. So I think, it's definitely supporting quality training outcome, because compliance makes sure that we provide the right training, and we provide the training that is aligned with industry. So compliance really, if you have the right compliance, that should guarantee that you will have a great training. If you have the right compliance, you're going to have the right trainers, the right assessors, the right equipment, the right resources, facility. So, if you have all that packaged together, that's going to lead most of the time to a great training. So compliance support quality outcome, and I think lead quality outcome. And I think, because I'm coming from industry myself, that really shaped my approach on understanding how the relevance of the training we offer, how important it is that, it should be relevant to the industry. And we should ask ourselves the questions, if I were to need first aid, would I trust that student to provide first aid for me? Would I trust that they could help me in needs? And would that employer employ that student? Would that employer think that they have the right and the current skills and they should be able to do the task they've been signed off on without supervision and confidently? So, yeah, I think it's easy to see it as a tick box exercise, but the meaning behind it is just so much bigger and so much more important.
So obviously doing their PD with their compliance is still a really important part to make their training and delivery quality and to give the best outcome to the students. It's not just a tick box. It does actually have an outcome. Like, you know, they do need to keep up to date with their PD in the compliance space as well.
But yeah, and you know what? In a lot of industry, you have trainers that have been training for 20 years, which means, you know, if you're training for 20 years full time, when are you going in the industry, right? But that compliance requirement is there to get you out of the classroom and making sure you're going back to industry and you're aware of the latest trends and the latest needs of industry. And that having those PD requirement it's not just enforcing, you know, like compliance.
A tick box. Yeah.
To be difficult.
It's not to be difficult. It's to make sure that, again, we have trainers that are still in touch with currency, even if they train full time, so they are relevant to students, and the training they deliver is relevant to industry, and they're not gonna demonstrate old skills that may not be current anymore. So PD has that importance, and PD is not only focusing on the industry, it also focus on having RTO understanding as well. So most of the time we want to have a, you know, half and half approach, where you should have half of your PD dedicated to understanding the vet and RTO environment, so you understand the requirements and understand compliance, and then half that is dedicated to that industry alignment. So yeah, definitely very important.
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Caroline, if there was one thing that our listeners could take, and there's going to be plenty of things, but if there was one thing in particular that you would like for our listeners to remember from what we've either talked about today or generally from yourself, what would it be?
I think that compliance is not a tick box exercise. It's not just about endless paperwork, but it has a much bigger meaning behind, and it all relates to student outcome and quality training and assessment. And for all, you know, trainers and assessors out there, I think it's just important when you're signing a unit off, step back and ask yourself the question, you know, would I hire that person, and would I be confident with the skills of that student? Yeah.
They'd be able to save my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's often one thing we think about, right? Is exactly as you said. Caroline, thank you for your time today. I'm hoping that today's session gives our training partners a lot, insight, reassurance that we're in good hands, that we operate a tight ship when it comes to compliance, and the reason that we ask, you know, the reason the bad cops ask the questions or for the evidence is because obviously there's a bigger and greater meaning behind it. So we are so happy to have you as part of the team and representing us and our partners and trainers. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Beyond the Bandage. We really hope you enjoyed the session. Please like, share and subscribe so you can be part of future episodes and get notifications whenever they are aired. We really would appreciate your support. Thank you so much.